My personal favorite Muppets are Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and his loyal lab assistant Beaker. The humor surrounding the characters are their exploits within Muppet labs, where Bunsen usually has some kind of dangerous, malfunctioning experiment which he tests on the reluctant and anxious Beaker to disastrous results. Outside of their funny designs and timeless humor, I think something I've always loved about this duo is how they feel like they're quite practically my last two brain cells interacting. As long as I'm revealing things about myself you didn't ask about, I have autism spectrum disorder, formerly known as Asperger's syndrome, which is characterized and often manifested by social ineptitude and difficulty interpreting signals from others. And while I've never subjected anyone to a deadly lab experiment, I somehow relate to a character ignorant to the terror he wreaks on his friends. I also have generalized anxiety disorder, characterized by me being high-strung and nervous at pretty much all times. So Beaker's nerve-wracked disposition is something I strongly relate to as well. The thing is, if you were to distill my personal weaknesses as my out-of-the-box thinking, blocking out my common courtesy and manners, and causing my anxiety to spiral out of control, you get just about every interaction between Bunsen and Beaker, yet they never feel the need to drop one another. In fact, they're very defensive of their unity. And frankly, no matter how much trouble my neurosis and personal inadequacies cause me, I wouldn't trade the conditions that cause them within me and frank ingenuity and creativity they bestow for the world. And it's characters like Bunsen and Beaker who help me feel comfortable with that. Sir, those are my emotional support Muppets. The Muppets have been a part of my life since the beginning, from my youngest years watching the Muppets Take Manhattan over and over, to my preteen years coming around to the original 1970s Muppet Show and wildly expanding my pop culture repertoire with it, to the point that seeing Muppets Most Wanted in high school may be one of my most beloved theater experiences. A big appeal there within is what an eclectic ensemble makes up the Muppets, and how there really is one for everyone. The thing about the Muppets is, even though they're insanely passionate about their respective niches and jobs and what they do, they're all kind of terrible at it. Gonzo is too accident-prone to be a good daredevil, Fozzie isn't funny enough to be a good comedian, all to the chagrin of Kermit, who's too controlling and anxious to be a good host. But for all their faults, you certainly can't accuse the Muppets of a lack of trying. To try your very hardest and still fail is the human experience, especially in an artistic sense. The scruples that we laugh at in the Muppets when their attempts to sing and dance go awry, despite the ridiculous results, are often pretty relatable. Miss Piggy doesn't fit the mold set by a conventional leading lady, Robin the Frog is too small to make the impact he wants to, and the Swedish Chef is the Swedish Chef. The Muppets are all outcasts, and I think we've all felt like one or more of them at a time, and considering the background of their staple performers, it's no surprise they've so easily channeled this mentality of embracing their disposition as misfits. Richard Hunt was an openly gay man, and Frank Oz had to immigrate with his family to escape the scrutiny of the Nazi Party, just to name a couple. I think this is why the Muppets' union with celebrities is their bread and butter, as it's sort of a team-up of the messy and imperfect with the direct culture and status, and not using one to necessarily tear the other down, but to create something truly distinct and often beautiful simply in how they offset one another on the spot. The Muppets often get the recognition and limelight from a star they idolize, and the celebrity guest gets an opportunity to perform something they likely never would otherwise. I owe a lot of my taste in music to the Muppets. If you're like me and late adopted the Muppet Show, you were exposed to all kinds of celebrities and esoteric songs. I have exclusively the Muppets to blame for my elementary school Elton John phase, and even revisiting the show to this day, I find myself infected by songs like Nice Boy Like Me, as endearingly covered by Sandy Duncan.
Tell me what's a nice girl like me doing in a place that never closes. Can hardly hear ya. Holy Moses, looking so sad.
In this way, the Muppets are kind of a gateway to broader culture that's accessible to many, from Zero Mostel to Twiggy to Moominshans. Viewers from any age can come for the slapstick and cute animals and find themselves aging into someone who knows who Liberace is. To the point I want to make most, though, is that it's this dual clash of tones that actually makes the Muppets a serious emotional landmark for me. The Muppets might be the institution that has made me cry while watching the most. Perhaps it's just always been there when I've needed it, but it somehow always strikes such a chord with me, no matter where I am in my life. Even my very first exposure to the characters via The Muppets Take Manhattan, I knew something here was different, and it made a huge impact on me. The song Saying Goodbye never fails to tug at my heartstrings, and a huge part of why is how effortlessly the Muppets convey lifelike emotion. Henson and his crew were undisputed masters of their craft, and this number is the perfect masterclass as to why, making you completely forget that you're looking at inanimate puppets simply seated on trains and buses, and pulling you into the emotional whirlwind all the characters are enduring.
Seems like goodbye, such a hard thing to say. It's time for saying goodbye.
I mentioned before that the Muppets are iconoclasts who find family and kinship with one another. Seeing them separate is nothing short of heartbreaking, because they're the best support they have, as demonstrated time and time again when they've needed it. I was recently moved to tears by the sequence from Bernadette Peters' starring episode of The Muppet Show, where she has a heart-to-heart with the crestfallen Robin the Frog.
If just one person believes in you, deep enough and long enough, before you knew it,
Two whole people who believe in you.
I watched this at a tender time, and it just brought everything out of me, seeing that no matter how different and irritated the Muppets are with one another, they support each other like a family and believe in one another. And in a time where I really needed to believe in myself, this number really helped me in that regard. What struck me as just sugary, if not bizarre, sketches on the Muppet Show when I was younger now really speak to me as downright therapeutic. This bit with Sandy Duncan, for instance, really speaks to my body positivity.
Of course I'm crying. I feel sad. I mean, wouldn't you feel sad if you looked like me?
I don't think there's anything the matter with the way you look.
Oh, you're just saying that to be nice.
Look, but I'm not running away. I'm not calling the police, and I don't think you're a big lump, so there.
There are also a lot of bits of characters singing to real animals, often in a wistful and gentle way, which I've come to read as sort of a star-crossed vibe, where the outcast Muppet performers send regards to conventional creatures they don't fit in with, a feeling many artists and no doubt Muppeteers are familiar with. I think we've all felt like a Muppet, someone who doesn't fit in or manage the job quite as we envisioned. But the Muppets have each other and are still going strong to this day, and Lord knows they've kept me going. There's one last gratitude I seriously owe them, and I hope you don't mind a little, pandemic talk. So, a year ago, the pandemic was heating up, and I had just moved back in with my family after my college career was totally uprooted during my senior year. I was paralyzed with fear, grieving, and uncertainty. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I was scared I'd be stuck inside forever, scared I'd get sick, scared the world would just crumble. I needed to distract myself, and I needed something with the lowest possible stakes, just comfort food, and that was Muppet Babies. It was a bizarre whim, because it's not something I'd usually seek out actively, but I needed to live in a world where nothing could stress me out. The episode Sir Kermit the Brave sees Kermit dealing with his fear of the dark in a persona of a courageous knight, and I came across this song.
I get nervous and I start wondering what might be hiding out there in the dark.
But let's stop and try to remember it's gotten dark every night since, well, forever.
I could almost forget what was so scary about the dark.
And in my vulnerable place, I burst into tears. In a time where I felt very in the dark, I was so touched by this song, and it became something I carried with me in the scariest hours of quarantine. And here I am, a year later, vaccinated and seeing friends and family again, and still needing the Muppets from time to time, including quite recently as I write this, spurring the production of this video, as you can guess. Rough situations come and go, but the Muppets have always been there for me, and I'm really thankful for that.